Hello, everybody. This is Joseph Menace with CNS 504, and I am presenting on group interventions for intense foster care youth. This would be a developmentally responsive group for ages 5 through 12 and 13 through 17. And I chose to divide the ages or separate the ages for the appropriateness of their peer interaction from my experience in working with intensive foster youth. Putting a 7-year-old with a 17-year-old or even a 8-year-old with a 16-year-old is a very big difference. Having a 5-year-old with children all the way up through 12 and then having 13-year-olds through 17, they are, I believe, better equipped to develop strong peer relationships within the group. And the material that is covered within the group sessions can be adapted to those ages. So, why work for foster care youth? Children and adolescents involved in foster care are disproportionately impacted by trauma, disrupted attachment, and instability. Many present with emotional regulation difficulties, behavioral challenges, and limited opportunities for safe peer connection. From my experience working with children in the intensive foster care system, I don't have a case that hasn't had some type of physical, emotional, mental, or sexual abuse, neglect, or trauma. So, generally, a large majority of these children in foster care, especially intensive foster care, that go from placement to placement, who don't have a familial support or next of kinship support, they have a rough road ahead of them. Some of them are considered unadoptable because of their age or severity of behavior. So providing a group with for them could lead to benefits in communication and benefits in relationships and fostering healthy, safe relationships so that they can start to develop that sense of belonging. So, group interventions provide a structured relational space where you can practice regulation, they can practice social engagement and emotional expression in ways that individual service alone cannot fully address. They can form that community and that sense of belonging with the group. Why groups work in foster care settings? Trauma often impacts relational functioning, not just individual behavior. So, the trauma that these children have been through affects their ability to relate to other people. It's not just their internal trauma, it's how their trauma impacts the people that they interact with in the world around them and their environment. Youth benefit from peer normalization and shared experience. They can relate with one another. They've shared hard experiences. They can develop friendships and strengthen their community. Groups are usually a cost-effective and scalable within an agency system or in the community. They can be held at community centers, churches, institutions that work with social services, schools. So there are a number of ways that these can be cost effectively done. Evidence supports group-based social emotional learning and regulation outcomes. So through group-based work, social emotional learning and regulation has benefited from the group work. Developmental rationale, ages 5 through 12, promote a concrete thinking language, promote learning through repetition and movement and play, and focusing on emotional identification, regulation, and basic social skills. For developmental rationale, ages 13 through 17, identity and formation autonomy, peer influence and social comparison, focusing on emotional regulation, communication, trust, and self-efficacy. The proposed group structure. This would be proposed as 2 separate groups, children ages 5 through 12, and adolescents aged 13 through 17. To start, a group of 6 to 8 participants per group makes sense to me. Weekly sessions that run 60 to 90 minutes. Predictable structure with flexible experimental activities. And trauma-informed facilitation with clear boundaries. The clinical framework, this group model is grounded in trauma-informed care, attachment-aware practice, developmental appropriateness, experiential and relational learning, regulation before cognition, and the goal is to co-regulation and skill building, not compliance. So we want to foster regulation, community involvement, belonging, skill building, but we're not forcing compliance. We're giving these children autonomy and self-efficacy. How should these group leaders be qualified? What should be the qualifications of a group leader? Well, effective group leaders for this population must demonstrate a strong developmental knowledge, strong knowledge of child development, strong knowledge of what evidence-based group work works with children, trauma and attachment awareness, ability to manage complex group dynamics. Kids can be very hard to work with in a group. One must be equipped to handle groups of children or young adults. Teens can be very difficult to work with in a group setting. And also magic can happen in these group settings. I've seen friendships develop. I've seen groups of people support each other for years on end through weekly attendance and participation in groups. I've seen long-term relationships develop through this group work and progress on academics, progress on mental health and physical health, group activities, implementing things like outings and educational experiences. Facilitator, an asset and skills. This model is supported by the facilitator's background, including over a decade of foster care and community-based experience, comfort in working with non-clinical community environments, trauma-informed engagement skills, mindfulness and somatic regulation practices such as breathing techniques, strength-based relational leadership. These skills allow for flexibility without compromising structure. This type of work will not come without challenges. The anticipated challenges would start with inconsistent attendance due to placement changes, children in and out of homes participating and then maybe being moved from Indianapolis to Mishawaka, which I just had happen to me with an intensive foster child. Mandated or reluctant participation. If this is something that's forced upon the family, the placement family, or the children, they may be more reluctant to participate. Peer conflict and trauma activation. Experiencing conflict within the group that brings up and activates behavior or conflict within internal processes from the individuals, but that is exposed to the group. Varied developmental and emotional functioning. Some of these children may have disabilities. Those disabilities could vary, but some could be autistic and some could be on the more functioning side of autistic, and others could be severely autistic, and that also creates a relationship to be navigated and worked with. It's not an impossible relationship to have, or there's no reason it can't be progressive and positive, but it definitely is something that takes some work in certain cases. Varied organizational and system level constraints. So it takes work to find the location, to reach out and organize the groups, then to show up and facilitate the groups, to develop materials and handouts for the groups, to develop maybe resources online or in the community. So it's not without putting a significant amount of work in. That's mental and physical. These challenges are addressed through intention, structure, flexibility, and clear clinical goals. Assessing the needs for the group. The group needs would be evaluated using multiple data sources, including, but not limited to, behavioral incident reports, placement stability trends, school attendance and discipline data, caregiver and provider observations, intake and assessments and emotional regulation screenings. No single metric is sufficient on its own. Measuring group effectiveness outcomes would be tracked using pre and post group behavioral indicators, engaging in and attendance and consistency, caregiver and staff feedback. The placement family and the staff have to be heavily involved in this. There's going to be transportation, and there's going to be there has to be the need for a willing participant. Youth self-report when developmentally appropriate. Organizational benefits, implementing these group supports, preventative, early intervention models, reduced behavioral escalation, increased placement stability, efficient use of limited clinical resources, alignment with agency mission and care standards. In conclusion, trauma-informed group interventions offer foster care youth developmentally appropriate opportunities for regulation, connection, and growth while meeting system-level needs for effective and sustainable services. Well-designed groups are not an add-on, they are a strategic intervention. These are the references I used while producing the presentation. Thank you for your time and attention. It's been great to participate in this class with all of you. Here's my contact information if you want to ever collaborate. I actually am putting a group like this together, so I will be able to implement this in real life. Thank you.